everybody, and welcome to Artisan Mentoring, where we talk about everything that is piano craft. We do this all week long. We do this 3 times a week, where we just sit for an hour and we geek out to pianos and piano servicing, things that we're learning, tools that are coming to the market, and we just have a lot of fun doing it. And a lot of the lessons are born out of mistakes or things that go wrong. And I would say today's lesson is in that vein. It's born from something that happened over the last week or so. Three different things, but all related that kind of messed with me. And I get to share those with you so that you don't make the same mistakes that I made. Let's go to the first one. I was tuning the spinet here in Arizona, and I grew up in the Northwest. I lived up in Seattle, up in Portland, and the amount of moisture that we have in the air is just perfect climate for pianos. And so one of the things that I'm noticing is the tuning pin blocks, the tuning pins feel way looser here. And in talking with Mark, he's like, yeah, that's kind of what we're used to. You have humidity that's maybe, just a lot more moisture in the air. So I noticed that, but I was tuning the spinet and there was all of these clicks in it. And I was like, what the heck? So as I was tuning it, I was hearing these clicks and I'm like, okay, it's not this, it's not that, it's not this. And then I started to realize, I'm like, I wonder, because the hammers didn't have a lot of side to side play, but I knew it was around the hammer area or maybe a combination of several things. And I just started tightening all the screws. As you know, it was like a Thayer action, and so it had kind of that a bunch of different stuff with stickers and everything, and the flanges. And I literally just started tightening all of the screws I could get to, and magically, all those clicks went away. And it wasn't like any of the screws had like a whole turn or two of them. It wasn't like they were that loose, but it was loose enough so that when combined, there was just all these weird little clicks and inconsistencies. And my mentor, it was funny because like he would have me do all the action work and stuff like that. And every action that we rebuilt, the first line item, can anybody guess what the first line item was on every piano that we would recondition the action for? It had one line item. And it would have like $95, or I don't even remember what it was, but it was like, boom, every action gets this. Can somebody guess what it is?
Tighten screws.
Tighten screws. Tighten all of the action screws. My friends, there's a lot of action screws. And I'll be honest, the reason that hasn't really been something that I do is because it's one of those jobs that I do not like doing. Nobody likes to tighten 500 screws. I don't know. You know what I mean? You have, like, just to say the grand action, you got the whipping, you got the hammer flanges, you have the rail screws. You have so many screws to tighten, and I'll just admit it. I kind of go to the stuff that I like to do at times. And this was one of those rude awakenings where it was like, wow, I guess that really does make a difference. Jacob, I'm so curious to hear what your thoughts are, because Jacob's going to like mic drop and be like, I tighten the screws every time.
Actually, I'm so glad to hear that. There's like, I've always said that like leveling keys, I don't like doing, and I always feel guilty about that. But that's the same for me. That's the tightening screws thing for me. Leveling keys is arguably as monotonous as anything else.
Yeah,
it's just I don't know. I just get so bored because you're just leveling keys. I don't know. So yeah,
I love
get that
finding action
with
screws.
you do, Victor.
It's super necessary.
What do you have an electric screwdriver, or are you going it by hand and Victor's got like these massive forearms from just like tightening screws.
Yeah, I think you gotta have a good screwdriver. I think that's what it is. The very first thing I ever did with my mentor at his house is we tighten action screws. I remember that's the very first thing we ever.
Yeah.
First in-house lesson. Yeah, but I think it comes down to having a good screwdriver. I don't know. I like it because I know it's gonna yield a good result. Everything's gonna be it's gonna be easier to work on after because if you have loose flange screws and your hammers are gonna be filing or clicking. So to me, it's gonna make the whole process easier.
All right, I think on everybody's mind is show us a picture of this nice action screwdriver because, I mean,
I agree.
I want to know what this looks like because in my mind, what is this like? Leather bound, etched in gold.
The ones I use, they're called PB Swiss. They're from Switzerland. They're made for airplanes. But they're the most accurate screwdrivers on the planet. I've gone through all of them, and their flatheads are different than any other flathead screwdriver. The ends are not tapered; they're parallel, so it bites flathead screws very, very nicely.
You're gonna post it in the chat, right? Or post it in the forum because I will buy those if they make me want to do it a little easier. So. But
Stacy put a link. I'll put the link to the set of screwdrivers I use. The exact one.
Maybe the fact is the screwdriver just isn't cool enough, like fun enough.
You know what? That could be
leather-bound screwdriver that you're like, I get to use this too.
Yes. Yes, that's the secret. That's the secret. But seriously, how many screws do you think? Okay, let's go with upright. Let's do a full-size upright. You're going to have the damper lever screws. You're going to have the hammer flange screws. You're going to have the whipping screws. You're going to have the sticker screws. Yeah. That's 4 times 88 right there. Plus, you're going to have the screws attaching the brackets to everything.
There's rail screws. Yeah.
I'm just like. So this is one of those, I guarantee you, most people are probably not doing this service, and it's really an easy service to do, and it's a quick. I mean, it's not quick, but it's a service, and it's worth it. It's a $95 service all day long. Hey, I'm going to tighten hundreds of screws that need to be tightened the right way.
It's technically. I guess it's technically pre-regulation, but it is an essential part of regulation.
Yeah, it is.
A lot of people just kind of skip over it because it's not really regulation. You got to do it though.
I guarantee you, they skip it over for the same reasons you and I skip over it. Oh, I'd rather get my blow distance going. Oh, I'd rather go ahead and space these keys really quick because that's going to make more of a difference. I like that more than that. So we tightened all those screws using my janky, not as cool screwdriver as Victor has, and it solved all of those little clicking issues. By the way, there's going to be a mystery fourth little thing that people always forget, and I'm going to bring that to the very end. The next one. So questions about screw tightening. I mean, for Victor, you basically just did the mic drop and like, hey, here's the screwdriver that will make all of your magical dreams come true. So we'll wait for that.
Yeah. Just give me a sec. Yeah, I'm trying to find it.
It's probably expensive enough. I have to sell a kidney just to buy one of these things.
Yeah, it's definitely a lot more than your average Husky screwdriver you can go pick up at the Home Depot.
I bet.
I've had problem with the combination tool handle because I need a really long screwdriver to get to like this one here on the damper. Yeah. And then I can't get, I'll tighten it down with pliers, but now the tool handle just starts spinning when I really have to crank it. I don't know if anyone's had that problem, if it's just a cheap one. It's one I got from Howard. The second one I've got, I had to return it. So I don't know if there's a better, longer, skinny screwdriver to get in those long places where, you know, you need a longer handle. That's the problem I've had.
I actually had to go to a hardware store and I just bought, and I think it's like a foot and a half. It's like 18 inches, 18 or 20 inches, and it's a really long flathead. And that's what I started to use, and it's worked out really pretty well. It's not made in Switzerland, but I mean, it does pretty well.
Maybe Randy Casado could make a screwdriver. Be like,
Ooh,
custom.
yeah.
I'm like, there's an industry for this. I just know there is, like, custom.
Could you imagine if it's like, hey, one of the things you can do, like Randy, if you're watching, do this. He's like, okay, you're new to the industry. You want to dialed out. I'm going to get you your tuning lever, your little tuning hammer. Or what is it called? You know, the other thing that you hold and push down.
The pounder.
I'm going to get you screwdrivers that match. I'm going to get you a combination tool handle. What do you want? Coca-Cola, rosewood, whatever. You just give me a check for 10 grand and I will make it for you. Yeah, that's what I do. I just go to this hardware store and I got a really long one because I had the same issue. And luckily, the spinet that I was working on, I had that really long screwdriver, Robert, and I was able to feed that through everything and get to those hammer flanges and tighten those screws by just kind of moving that jack over, and I was able to do it. But yeah, just a really long one.
Yeah. I'll also say that getting in the habit of like tightening all of them over and over again, it's like I remember when I started, it was super hard to find that flange screw behind the jack. I was like, where is that thing? I didn't know where it was. But after you do like, I don't know, 5 sets of just tightening hammer flanges, you can do it without even looking. And so I think it's good to build up that kind of muscle memory, so you don't have to be getting a flashlight out and this and that. You can just do it without even looking. Yeah,
that's good.
Yeah. All right, I put a link to the set I use. It's actually on sale right now. I really recommend it.
How much are they?
The set, it's like a combination style, and it's $68, I think.
It's not that bad. Okay.
Yeah. I like it because it's the combination, kind of like what we're used to. And I recommend getting another handle so you can have two if you're going to use Phillips and a flat at the same time or something.
That's a good idea. All right, service number 2. I guarantee you most people are not doing or forgetting about until it bites them in the butt. Cabinet hardware. And I'm talking the hinges and grands. I'm specifically talking about the little hardware pieces that lock the lid. I've gotten so burned in the past by not checking these things because, and it's easy to do. You literally just tap on the cabinet hardware. I'm talking about the metal hardware, whether it's the hinges, other little brass pieces on there. Just give it a tap. Just give it a tap. And you will know really quick, and it takes seconds. But I can't tell you how many times I've had to go back where there's a buzz or there's something going on. And if I would have just taken another couple minutes and just quickly tested, okay, you know, the flap, what do they call that? The lid flap hinge is loose. So I'm just going to quickly use a small screwdriver, quickly tighten all those really quick. Most technicians forget about that. They forget about that. They don't do it. And it's one of those things that can come back. Jacob, correct me if I'm wrong. Maybe you're that diamond in the rough that's like, no, every time I check that and I tighten that.
No, only when it's buzzing. And yeah, often it's that locking mechanism that has to be the lid.
And the grands.
I haven't found the continuous hinge to be that bad. But sometimes, like, it does happen. So
yeah.
But that's definitely like a secondary one that I check.
You mean the little twisty thing on the grands that locks the lid?
Right, but it's not the twisty thing.
Yeah,
it's usually like there's like a rod and then it like seats into the rod, and so whatever
Okay.
that is,
Yes.
like Yamahas
Yes.
have that a lot.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. I just wanted to make sure I understood. Thank you.
It's
Yeah.
funny that you were talking about the lock, because we had our chapter meeting with the PTG on Saturday. We had an all-day regulation class for stuff, but we had a side conversation talking about this very subject of the locks and how it could be, the spring mechanism where you have the thing goes through and it has a spring that is inserted, and that very place could be where the noise is coming from. So it's interesting that you brought that up when I had just heard about that. So.
It really, and I don't know if this is going to be more useful to folks in maybe drier climates, but what I'm noticing is at least here in Arizona, that I'm kind of just tapping stuff, and it is just like the vibrations is just there, and they're all super loose. So again, I don't know what it's like in Utah, but I didn't notice it being as much of a problem in the Northwest, where we do have more moisture in the air. But it is definitely something that I'm noticing here in Arizona, and so I'm just kind of going through and just tightening them all.
That's smart, and probably you're like the first decent technician that piano's seen ever, probably. So that's possible. But yeah, that does happen a lot here in Utah. That a lot of buzzing, a lot of things that just the wood is drying out and changing dimensions, and so yeah, it does happen a lot.
To that, going back to that, I really do recommend you have one small flathead screwdriver just for these small screws. Mm-hmm. Again, it's just I didn't have one, and it took me forever to tighten this just continuous hinge, because the screwdriver I had was just a little bit too big, so I really had to push in and do it. So make sure that you have the right size screwdriver for that.
So what are your thoughts, talking about climates, here in Indiana, we go from dead of winter where, we have next to no humidity to, our hot summers of 90 plus with, 90% humidity. So we're going all over the place, back and forth. You're seeing the screws and stuff in the drier climates where the wood's, drying out, but in here it's just fluctuating back and forth. What's your thoughts as far as what we might experience in kind of the Midwest type of climate?
You know what? I'm wondering if it's going to be a little bit closer to what I'm used to in the Pacific Northwest, because I think that you just here in Arizona have just an overall dryness. So that over the piano I was working on was 50 years old, and they had it right there. And so over 50 years, it's just like a sponge is released all of its moisture. There's nothing there. And I don't anticipate that being as much of a case in these other parts of the country. I can imagine, though, Denver gets so dry. I bet that it's like that. Mm-hmm. Whereas I think you just have snaps, right? Just like an intense snap for a couple months.
Yeah, exactly. So, it will trend down, through the fall, going into the holidays and into January and February, where it gets the coldest and also the most dry. And then as soon as spring happens and the spring rains, of course, we get, the humidity starts going up, and in the summer we get all the humidity coming from the Gulf of Mexico.
Yeah. Well, to Jacob's point, though, just a second ago, he said that probably one of I was probably one of the only technicians that have tried to do this in a long time. So I think that there's going to be a lot of that, Michael, where it may not have been a big issue, but because it's been 100 years, 50 years,
it's just the time of no maintenance on it. People may have tuned the piano, but not done maintenance in the action.
Exactly.
That makes perfect sense.
And that's what I think is more the issue. Now that that was a good point, Jacob.
I hate to say it, but like when I follow someone, even though it's someone that I trust, sometimes I don't really know who it is. But even then, I'll double check things just because I don't know if they've had a bad day that day or something. Like, I can't just automatically think that technician did the job. And so
Yeah.
So I just double check things sometimes, and that's often has saved me headaches from going back and redoing things. So,
Jacob, are
it's
you
not
more likely to look at screws and stuff like that when you are pulling an action versus when you're just doing a tuning?
tightening action screws and things is more if I'm pulling it out and then I notice something, or if I'm going to do some service to it, specifically like recalibration or something, then definitely. But I also, like, I've heard it. I will always, when I sit down at the piano, I'll always do a chromatic scale, always. And I've been doing this long enough where I can hear things right away. So I'm listening for clicking. I'm listening for ringing, metallic, or any wooden sounds. And so usually with the chromatic scale, I can kind of quickly diagnose. Okay, the rest rail on this grand needs to be tightened really quick, or whatever. Like, you can find a lot of information just from a chromatic scale before you even start tuning. And also to David's point, with the cabinetry on still, because if you're hearing a buzzing,
that's a good point,
afterwards, then you're gonna have to come back and fix it. So do it before you take it apart. That'll save you a headache.
Jacob just touched on my hidden fourth thing.
And sorry.
So that's good. No, it's good. I cannot tell you how many times I have done this, and I know other technicians do this, where we'll service the piano, it's all good to go, we'll have it open, and we're playing everything, and it's just money. We'll put it together, do the paperwork. The next day, they'll be like, there's a buzz, there's a this, there's a that. And we go back there, and it's because we didn't check it with the case parts on.
I've done it. That's why I say it, because learn from my mistake, because you feel stupid afterwards. Like, it would have been easy to do.
Oh yeah, and it makes sense to do a final check over with everything on, because you are disturbing its habitat, right? You are pulling off that front board, putting it on, doing stuff like that, and jostling it around. You need to double check before you leave, after you put everything back together. So yes.
Jacob, I always heard you, because I know Jacob's tunings, because we work together. So I would always hear you do that chromatic scale, and I just was like, that's just like a Jacob thing. I had no idea like there's such intent behind everything you guys do. You would do it after too, right? No, you would just play it. You would play it though. Like you would do that chromatic scale theme before, and then you'd always play after too. Like, that's so cool.
There's several tunings afterward. There's several checks that I do after the tuning.
Mm-hmm.
But that first chromatic scale, I'm going really fast because I'm trying to diagnose problems or sticking or anything. Like, that's going to give me.
I just think that's so cool.
A lot of feedback.
I didn't know that was why.
Yeah, that's a great idea. I do chromatic scales now, because I would just play a piece, but then you don't play every key while whatever piece you're playing. But it's already happened a couple times where the first or last key are not working, because like the cheek blocks, when you have the cheek blocks out, they work fine, but you put it back in and it's rubbing against that cheek block, and I never checked. And then they call and they're like, the last key's not working. And it's not like anybody plays that key regularly, but somebody's kid, that they like playing the first and last key, and then they call, oh, Jimmy tried playing, it's not working. So that's why I do that now.
I had the same problem with the key slip. And I thought, why is this sticking? It's driving me nuts. And the key slip was not properly placed. I spent 10 minutes before I felt like an idiot. It's not just right in front of you, but I get that.
I have to show you my trick one of these days. I'll show you guys how I shim the key slip. I actually like to drill and then put a capstan in. Instead of just gluing something in, I like to be able to adjust it throughout the years.
Class idea.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a good one. That's similar to what my mentor showed me, but I didn't ever think about doing a capstan. He just said a screw. I like the capstan idea. That's a really good idea.
Yeah.
So you just like countersink it, you know what I mean, and get it to where, wow, that is good. Jacob Huntman, man.
I got a few things.
Got a couple things. You learned a couple things in 25 years.
Can I say one thing about lids since we're talking about lids? We're talking about grands, but I'll talk about uprights. In schools, a lot I find most of the time it's a P22, and the P22 those the butt plate or those forks get loose, and then the screws scratch the sides, and then they can't open easily. So I feel like that happens a lot. So anytime I come across a P22, take it off, tighten those, and make sure that the forks aren't bent. Because then, I've had directors, 3 or 4 times, they try to force it, and then they break them, or they get all bent, and then the floorboard gets stuck. And I've had we haven't used that piano in 6 months because it won't open anymore. So I think that's a big one, especially in schools.
It's ridiculous to me, Yamaha, if you're listening. You have a piano that's designed, literally the P22 is this amazing piano designed to be a workhorse, more institutional piano. I do not know why the system is so finicky, so subjective to little things that. Yes, come on. The struggle is real, though. We've had to replace so many of those things where they get bent. And what we're talking about, for those that you haven't seen it, the fall board has this metal on either side, a little metal bracket that has an opening. And in that opening, there's a little very thin, we're talking about a 64th of an inch thin piece of metal that goes over to keep it locked into place. And it's crazy. It's like you blow on that thing and it gets bent crazy.
Yeah, it's a piece of a soda can.
Make it out of foil.
Yeah, I've seen that on the Samix, kind of that same thing, hook.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah. No bueno. The third thing, since we talked kind of about that bonus, make sure the piano's together before and play it and demo it. The third thing that most people never do, yet if the customer notices it, is the absolute cherry on top of your service. In fact, get to the point where you don't even do this until the customer's paying you, or go back and be like, I forgot something. I need to go do this. I can't tell you how many times the customer's just been almost in tears, thankful, tightening the bench legs. It's ridiculous. That is the cherry on top. And make sure the customer sees or knows you do it every time. Jacob, what do you think?
Yeah, definitely. If you've done it without them noticing, bring it up.
Yeah.
A technician that I work with, that's what he's recommends every single time.
And that's how it gets all the Google reviews.
And that's how you bringing it up and then asking for a review afterwards. And people love it. It's true. It's huge. That's a great one.
30 seconds. And I'm amazed sometimes how much of how loose they are, because nobody's ever done it.
Yeah.
I've seen that, I've not been doing this that long, and I've already seen 2 that the bench I don't want to sit on the bench because it's wobbling so much. I'm like, no, it needs some help.
Is that something you should do before you sit down on it? Because a couple of times I thought, whoa.
Because of that, because I want to make sure that the bench is okay before I'm doing anything. So
yeah,
especially if you're going to throw an action on there. I always tighten those screws first. I don't want to be putting an action on there and it breaks. Yeah.
Yeah, so tightening all the action screws is something that very few technicians will ever do. They're all basically need it. The same goes with the cabinet hardware, whether it's the hinges, whether it's the little decorations, or the locking mechanism. You'd be amazed at how how often they do need a quick turning and a tightening. Be sure to fully assemble the piano and test it out before you call the job done, because I've had so many times where I didn't do that. The customer calls me back because there's something just a little off. By the way, one thing that I do notice in the cheaper Asian made grands is that a lot of times the it has a lid prop, and a lot of times for whatever reason that lid prop rubber button can get hard or it falls off. And a simple thing that you can do is just put a little piece of I had this happen to the customer the other day. She's like, what should I do? And we just got some tissue paper and put it where it lands on the plate, just to kind of buffer that. Because she's like, I want something just quick and easy. What can I do? And so that is another source of that rattling. It's kind of there's not a lot you can do. Either you replace that button or put some felt there. But yeah, that cabinet hardware is prone to buzzing. And then finally, really knock it out of the park by tightening the bench in front of them. Do make sure though, and I had this happen. They're like, hey, this bench is a little loose. And like, hey, why don't I tighten this for you? It's no charge. And I open it up. They ain't no tightening that thing. It was like designed in a way that was like you would have to break it apart and re-glue it and everything. And I'm like, sorry, yeah. So make sure it can be tightened.
Same thing happened to me. That is just straight wood joints.
Yes.
You can't do anything about it. And I was like there in front of the customer. That was embarrassing.
I hate the wing nut ones with wing nuts. I've broken a lot of those. I've broken, I don't know, 4 or 5 of those already. I stopped doing it after that.
It's always good if you guys are interested to have, you can become a bench dealer so easy for like Jansen or Bench World, just to be like, hey, you just need a new bench. I put a link though to like the strongest benches in like the world. There were in the churches, we had these Tonkins that are big guys. They're big, and they would constantly break the church piano benches. And so this guy was actually commissioned to be like, can you make a bench that can just like handle like 600 pounds and never break? And so I put the link in there. But they're just like plain wooden benches, but they are so like you cannot hurt these benches. They are workhorse benches. So yeah.
How does that conversation go? Like, hey, Mr. Smith, I notice you're probably over 500 pounds. Here's a great bench.
No, it's more like this bench will never break.
Okay, there you go. This bench will never break.
Brother, whatever broke this bench 3 times. Let's different.
That's hilarious.
I hate loose benches so much that I've also tightened all the dining room chairs in the person's home. Like if I'm sitting at the table working on something, and like the one I'm sitting in is loose, and they're like, I bet all these other ones are loose. And I do that, and at the end I'm like, oh, real quick, I just tightened all your chairs are fixed now. And they're like, what did you do? I was like, oh, they're all loose, I fixed them. And like, they don't know what to say. And then I just leave.
They're stunned. Problems.
Yeah, to go through the whole house. Yeah.
Bring some furniture polish to this house too.
Jeez. It's that screwdriver Victor got. He's got to get his money's worth out of it.
Yeah, the same with the wrench. You got to have a good wrench. I'll put the link to the wrench I use. It's all about the wrench.
You know what? If the tools are good, we'll find reasons to use them.
So going back to tightening screws, David, how much do you see the 2 screws that tighten like a lyre to a grand piano? How often do you see those loose, or see the lyre being loose that you need to tighten?
That's a great question.
I was going to say that. I say it's a lot. For me, it's a lot, especially if it's been moved recently. The movers never install them right.
So the lyre is going to have usually one of 3 or 4 ways of tightening it. Everything from just a flathead screwdriver to an Allen wrench, to even wing nut screws. To be honest, I don't check the lyre tightness. I don't, unless I notice something. That's a good one. Hey, everybody watching, I meant to say there's 4 things, and the lyre one is another one. So, like, let's just back up.
Well, I guess if you're double checking pedals and the pedal regulation, you should see that. So it's not one of those necessarily surprise ones, but what I was thinking of, there's a couple of different things, because you could have the bolts be loose, but you could also have the braces be misinstalled, so things are loose because the braces aren't right.
Well, and I think it might be another situation just like the bench legs, where they don't seem that they're that loose, but when you go to tighten them, you'll get a turn and a half. And it's like, geez. Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. No, that's a really good one.
I actually carry small blocks of hardwood. It's already happened twice where the mover moved it, but they didn't install one of the props because the block that attaches it to the ground is missing. So I carry blocks around so that I can drill those and put those in. And that's already happened twice. The first time I literally glued together popsicle sticks and like made something real fast. And I was so scared of that client. So I came up with something. And then so from that point on, I always carry little blocks of wood so that you can make that repair. Because I've already seen it where they have the props. They're like, oh yeah, this has always been under the piano. It's just been laying there, but we don't know what it goes to. But it's the props that they just never installed.
Interesting. Yeah. I don't know if you've going along the lines of having these, the wood blocks. I don't know if you've ever come across an old upright, or even just even the cheaper Asian-made pianos where you're pedaling and there's a creak. There's a bad creak, and sometimes that can be where there's just a lot of flexibility within that pedal board. And so what I've done in the past is ask the customer, hey, do you have a couple books that you don't mind like never seeing again? And I'll basically put that between the floor and the bottom of that pedal board so that it doesn't flex. Has anybody run into issues like that before where you're at?
I had one recently. Go ahead, Jacob. Well, I had one recently where it was creaking. It turned out that the molding that holds the pedal was partially broken, and it was creating a creak because it was loose and one half was not screwed down, so it was loose on one side, and the other side was cracked. And it couldn't be tightened. So I was able to tighten the one side to at least eliminate it so that I could at least use it. But so I've seen stuff like that.
I honestly, the biggest, or at least the most common thing that I see with lyres is the glue joint itself coming out. And so you kind of have to like re-shim it and I don't know, there's a whole slew of stuff that you can do for it. But that's the most common one that I see. Honestly, not really loose screws that often for the lyre. But
so you're thinking of like the rods that go, or the big wood blocks that go vertical that are going down into the pedal block or into the top block that goes up against the base of the piano.
Often on both sides, it's a problem. But
a lot of times that happens because the movers. Tip it on the lyre and it breaks that glue joint.
Yeah.
So like Victor and Ramses moving pianos, they don't do that.
That's good.
Yeah. Oh, you reminded me something. On spinets, I always turn the legs to tighten the front legs if they're round.
Yes.
Nice.
I always do that. Good one.
Yeah. Wow. There's so many tightening things. Should have been just like all the things you should tighten. But the tightening thing is one of those things that, I mean, unless you're like Victor and have like need some kind of an intervention for tightening things, most people do not like tightening stuff. But it's one of those things that it's such a basic service that really does make a big difference. And you compound with all the little clicks, they just accentuate. And all it takes is a Swiss-made screwdriver and a couple little bit of time, and you can tighten everything,
including the kitchen table.
Yes, and the chairs.
Yeah.
And then little Susie's bed, and then the nightstands. Maybe, Victor, that should be like your side hustle. Like that's your side business. Like
yeah, there's a lot of IKEA shops.
Yeah, I'm already here. You want anything else done? Yeah.
That's great.
Piano tuner and IKEA assembler.
Yeah, no, just screw tightener. Just screw tightener.
Yeah. Well, talking about IKEA, so we went over to Ramp's house one time to work on a piano, and then he's like, "I got to put this bed frame together," and so I ended up doing that for him. Yeah.
That's funny.
You guys ever hear like people talking about describing their job poorly? And so I thought about it, like as a piano technician, we're just tightening and loosening things. If you want to reduce it down to that.
I need to update my resume.
Pins.
Professional tightener.
Yeah, tightening and loosening. That's basically what we do.
That is what we do. Dang it.
And sometimes you have to use glue. You
know? Oh, and occasional gluing, yes.
But that's tightening, right?
Right, it is.
No. What's voicing? It's tightening or loosening that density of the felt. Oh my gosh.
Oh, Jacob, that was profound, actually.
Oh my gosh. Pianocraft, the art of tightening stuff.
Wow.
Yep.
And now,
if you ever want to confuse someone, there you go.
Wow. Well, I'm going to be, over the next couple days, working with these guys and this guy. And so on Friday, we're going to do kind of a breakdown. I'm actually going to be doing it at Mark and Don's house on their shimmel, doing the unveiling and get to kind of do a live test. But yeah, we're going to be working on that this week. And then on Wednesday, we're going to talk about all things burning, because I found a new tool that I'm like loving right now. And it's very dangerous, and I love it that much more because of how dangerous it is. So I'll be unveiling that on Wednesday. Yes. It's my kids say it's so fire. It's fire.
Nice.
What was Mark's thought on that sort of the holy mute?
So, Mark, I'm sorry if I was not supposed to cut it open. I told you I was going to, but it doesn't look. This is what it looks like, right? So it looks like just 1.5 inches, or whatever it is, 1.25 inches mute. And I asked him. I said, "Hey, I usually use like 3/8 inch or 1/2 inch mutes." He's like, "Yeah, you can cut this one up. I'll make some for you." So it was more of just a pleasant surprise that when I sliced it open, I got to see what's on the inside. And maybe this is a mistake because it's patented, but I don't know.
Is it grippy? Like, do you think it'll fall out of like in an upright?
It is grippy. It's weirdly. So I tested it out with Mark and Don's Schimmel Grand, and it slid right in and it stayed, because I thought the same thing, Victor. Because a hard plastic, it's just going to fall out. So that's part of what I'm going to do test tomorrow, because I think I'm working on an upright. So I'm going to test it out, and he wants an honest assessment. So because he's
it's really chewy. Like if you chewed on it, it'd be like chewy.
I want to try it.
Well, don't poison yourself.
It is chewy.
Yeah, that's what it's so textury. I'm like, I want to lay on it and chew it up and just see.
They want someone else to test it out. Tell them to send me the files, because
David is an alternate.
It's very sensory, fascinating to me. Look at me. Oh my gosh.
It's really fun when you go to the center part. That's where it gets really fun.
Yeah. It just looks so, I don't know. That's really cool.
Yeah.
Like a
Mark's gonna watch this and they put it in his mouth. Come on. No, I'm actually a big fan of this, so I'll let you all know. towards the end of the week what my findings are. And yeah, he uses special filaments. Is that what it's called? Filament?
Yeah.
Certain type.
The material that goes through the machine. Yeah, I think.
Yeah. So, anyways, I'm going to play with that. I'm also going to play with this, which I guess is 5 ounces. Because so it's so light. So this is, he said 5 or 8 ounces. And I said, well, do you have like a scale? So when we're there, I can measure how heavy mine is, because if this is 5 ounces, mine must weigh 2 or 3 pounds. Because
I wonder if it'll be like, so I'm a biker, right? And I for years I biked on my heavy like Walmart bike, and I was doing like 50 milers on it. And then my husband got me this lightweight, like 6-pounder disc brake. And I almost died so many times on it when I started, because it's just such a different experience. So I'm so curious how you like it. You'll have to practice though.
I'm just going to go for it. We might get a lot of callbacks. People like, hey, that tuning was the worst tuning ever. It didn't hold, because I'm trying it out with something totally different. But you are right. It'd be like I have like a Schwinn Latour, 80s 10-speed. And if I got like this carbon fiber bike, I would be all over the place. Gosh.
And with the disc brakes, like you just go flying off of it. You just like, I guess I shouldn't be so. They're so touched. The whole, like the brake, like everything's a different thing. Like anyway, it's probably very similar, I think. So I'm excited for you.
The heaviest and the lightest tuning hammers available.
Is the handle wood, or is that what that is?
It is. They came out with the wood ones, and so.
Really nice.
Oh, you still get the wood.
Look at that.
That's really.
I know. Cool. So yeah, I'll let you know how it's going. So Wednesday we're gonna burn some stuff, and then Friday we're gonna talk about tuning stuff. So
I put some links in the chat for the wrench I use, and another thing for lyres. It's like an airbag, so you can pump it up underneath, and then you can take out all your screws. Yeah, that's another good one.
That is a good one. Yeah, I like that too. I've seen that.
Oh, Kinepix pliers, nice, yeah.
Yeah, the pliers wrench, they're amazing. I recommend everybody has a set in their bag because they're adjustable. Yeah.
Those wing nuts, like we were talking about, they work with those too.
Oh, they do?
Yep.
Oh,
yeah.
Okay.
You can. And the set I put, they're really small. It's like 5 inches, really short, but the opening goes to almost an inch. So, I mean, I can loosen. Yeah, you can loosen leg bolts with it. You wouldn't think, but it opens really wide. So I just throw that in my pocket a lot of the times.
Okay.
Yeah. I recommend that.
On the feed, those look really fun. And Christmas is coming, everyone.
Yeah, we each deserve some really good Christmas presents for ourselves.
Merry Christmas to me.
All right, y'all. See you on Wednesday.
Thanks, Dave.
Have fun working on pianos. We'll see you.
Bye.
Bye.